For more on the question of accountability, we are joined by Jeffery Rath. He is a treaty and Aboriginal rights lawyer who practices in Calgary. Today he joins us from downtown Toronto. So, Jeffery, I understand you were listening in when we heard from Prime Minister Harper just a few minutes ago. And during that time, he was asked questions about the Friday meeting, and he said, you know, that he hopes that they will continue to identify the problems and the solutions for long-term prosperity for all communities. But he also said that the Aboriginal communities, the challenges are great, but the potential is great too. What do you make of his comments?
Well, it's the typical approach to this government. No concrete promises to do anything, and let's talk about process, etc. From the standpoint of my clients, the real issue with regard to accountability is the fact that Treaty First Nations across Western Canada are owed literally tens of billions of dollars under treaty, and the Prime Minister himself needs to start being accountable for paying what Canada owes to these people who live in poverty. Enough is enough.
Tell me a little bit more about the timing of this audit and I guess to a certain extent the dialogue now that it is creating, for better or for worse, across this country, and whether that gets us off track from this meeting on Friday.
Well, it's one of the unfortunate coincidences that always happens when something like this is going on. Instead of focusing on the real issues, which is First Nations poverty nationally and the fact that the government owes literally tens of billions of dollars to communities across the country, we have a leaked audit, and the entire national dialogue is being diverted by the Prime Minister's office, wanting to, or quite happily having people talk about an audit in the middle of Northern Ontario where it's very difficult to get accountants and bookkeepers. I mean, the whole thing is just a distraction as far as I'm concerned from the real issues.
You had an article that was in the Globe and Mail today, and you said, idle no more protesters are simply saying that they do not want to be poor anymore. I mean, what does the law say about how much First Nations are owed under treaties?
Well, as an example, in the article in the Globe and Mail, one of the great places to start is with regard to the economic benefits provisions under all of the numbered treaties. The federal government itself came up with a number saying that the damages are, the tallying of the damages started at $42,000 a person, which, if you multiply that across all the numbered treaties, is in excess of $20 billion. If that money was immediately put into all of those communities, that would go a long way towards alleviating poverty in those communities. But of course, the F-35 program and Canadians in space and this Prime Minister's other priorities are far more important than people that are hungry, cold, and drinking water that isn't fit for human consumption. Enough is enough.
People look at those numbers, though, Jeffrey. They say, $104 million. Of course, that is a big headline, like it or not. And folks are wondering where it went. Are those valid concerns?
No. I mean, I haven't read the audit. I mean, the long and the short of it is that's not money that just disappeared. It went to social assistance checks. It went into housing. It went into various things. The fact that the audit or the bookkeeping wasn't perfect, just is what it is. I mean, as far as my clients are concerned, give them what they're owed. Some of my clients are owed, $500 million. Peguis First Nation in Manitoba being an example with regard to the destruction of virtually their entire reserve by Canada having flooded them out. And give us $400 million tomorrow, and we promise, as a condition of getting the check, to hire all the accountants you want. I mean, this is getting to be a little bit ridiculous, and this entire question of First Nations accounting and accountability is just a distraction from the fact that the poorest people in this country, who live in the midst of the great wealth of our nation, have to live in poverty when they're owed billions by the government of Canada. It's a national embarrassment. Okay,
so you represent First Nations chiefs, so what do you think will come of Friday's meeting between Prime Minister Harper and the chiefs?
Well, I mean, obviously none of us were particularly impressed with the, quote, leak, unquote, of the Awapiskat audit. Hopefully the Prime Minister is coming to that meeting in good faith, and hopefully the Prime Minister is coming to listen with regard to how it is that the Government of Canada needs to get out their checkbook and immediately start writing $100 million checks across the nation to all of the First Nations that are owed money, as opposed to delaying settlement of all the outstanding claims through the specific claims process, which has just turned into a joke.
Now, I got to ask you this, a delicate question, but I appreciate your honesty here. I mean, do you think, in light of what's happened happened with Theresa Spence and these demands for more transparency in terms of the financial state of her reserve. I mean, is there any way that has set the movement back, whether unintentionally or otherwise, now that this sort of larger dialogue is going on? Do you worry about that at all?
No, absolutely not. There isn't a First Nations chief and council that I act for that isn't prepared to be more accountable. They're saying, give us the money, we'll hire the accountants. $100 million hires a lot of accountants. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And, then the entire national debate and dialogue is being sidetracked, over basically, some minor bookkeeping issues in a community in the middle of nowhere where it's difficult to hire professionals to work for them on accounting and bookkeeping, to me is a bit rich when literally billions of dollars are owed to these communities, and they're the poorest communities in the country. It's just a crime that this is going on.
And real quick, are you worried at all that this is going to turn into a photo op on Friday?
Well, that's typically how the Prime Minister deals with these things. It's going to be the typical incremental approach. Let's shuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic and talk about, First Nations school boards and education and, these vague programs that may come in 4 or 5 years from now. Nobody's saying First Nations education isn't in need of dire improvement, but let's start where the problem is. Poverty is cured by money, not accountability.
Jeffery Rath, Aboriginal rights and treaty lawyer in downtown Toronto. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.